Hi, welcome to SVR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. Today is Thursday, December 27th, and we have UFC 232 coming up this weekend from LA on a Saturday, the 29th. What an awesome main card we have here from UFC 232. A very intriguing main card as far as betting value is concerned, maybe a little bit tricky, and we are going to analyze the main card of UFC 232 right now with our regular returning guest, Clint, a.k.a. screen name Animarak from the Loshak and the Bag Show, regular commenter from the Loshak and the Bag Show, who impressed us tremendously with his comments in the show, analyzing MMA odds. And of course, now we've brought him on. He's writing articles for SVR, doing videos with us. And last card, Animarak. What an awesome call by both of us. Font by decision at plus 190. You know, you don't want to go too crazy patting yourself on the back for just a plus 190 dog. Those do sometimes cash. But we nailed that one, Clint.
We nailed it. That was an awesome card and a great call.
Okay. Enough patting ourselves on the back, even though we didn't pat ourselves that much on the back right there. That's enough. Let's get into UFC 232. Clint, a.k.a. Animarak. Obviously, from a fan perspective, this is an awesome card. From a betting perspective, I'm scratching my head a little bit. Let's start with the main event. Gustafsson against Jon Jones. Obviously, this is a rematch 5 years in the making. The first fight was closer than maybe some people were expecting. Jon Jones, of course, after that fight said that he was not as prepared as he would have liked to have been, as he should have been for that fight, and it was very close. In retrospect, I think probably if you look at the stats, Jones did legitimately win that one, but some people have made the argument that that Gustafsson should have been credited with the win there. It did go the distance. And both of these fighters, of course, are off of a long rest. So ring rust is a factor. Octagon rust is a factor for both of these guys. A little bit hard to figure out what to make the betting odds. Jon Jones is a big favorite right now, around minus 270. I guess you have to make him that big of a favorite. Anything else would be inappropriate. But Gustafsson might have some betting value here, anywhere around plus 230, plus 240. And, of course, the fight is scheduled to go 5 rounds. The total is 4.5 over minus 115. So the market is expecting a finish, which also makes sense. I don't know. As I look at this right now, if you gave me a free play before I hear your analysis, I'd probably throw it on Gustafsson at plus 230. What's your take on this one, Clint?
This is a really, really interesting fight, Pete. I mean, there's all kinds of controversy going on right now. Jon Jones had another USADA test come back that he popped for Turinabol, but they're trying to cover it, saying that that was a leftover metabolite from his last pop that he had, even though it hasn't been in his system for a couple of months now. There's all kinds of questions around this fight, and you're absolutely right. That fight was a long time ago. It was very, very close, but I think you got to take into account the fact that Jon Jones truly was looking past Alexander Gustafsson at the time. Honestly, the line is super close as to where it should be in this fight. For me, I'm going to lay it or I'm going to pass. And I don't like laying big numbers like this, but there's no other way in my eyes to take this fight. I don't feel comfortable taking Gus. I do think Jones wins the fight, especially if he's on the juice and the UFC is covering for him. Yeah. I definitely like him in that circumstance. And the problem with taking this fight inside the distance or something like that for a better line, these guys went all 5 rounds last time. Jon Jones is a decision machine. He doesn't always finish his opponents. I could see him making Gus look like a fool and take him the distance and winning an exciting decision or a dominant decision.
Yeah, I mean, Jones is so great statistically at hitting but not getting hit. His fights do tend to go the distance. But I guess how could this fight end? See, I'm looking at this. I'm thinking maybe the over or the fight going the distance might have a little bit of value. If there is a finish here, how could you see this fight ending with a finish?
Wow. I mean, if there is a finish, I would say that it would probably be Jones by KO. I mean, the last time we saw him in the cage, he KO'd the heavyweight double champ DC Stiff with a head kick. And if that's showing us anything, that's showing that his striking has more pop these days than it used to. So I could see him clipping Gus, but Gus is so hard to finish himself. He's proven that he's got a chin. He takes damage. Neither of these guys really get finished. I think the over would be the only way to lean in this kind of a case.
Yeah, I'm looking at the odds right now at 5 dimes. The fight going the distance is plus 100. You know, it's just, it's so many things can happen in a 5-round fight, but it just feels like, once again, it's going to go the distance. And I'm thinking that maybe this sets up for a win by Gus, and then we see a rubber match, a huge, huge fight. You know, the trilogy, the third fight, the rubber match. But you don't think there's any, where do you think the fair, I know this is a hard question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, Clint, AKA Animarak. But where do you think the fair line here should be? At what point would you take a flyer on Gustafsson?
Oh, that's another tough call.
Question.
I mean, it's a really tough question. What's he sitting at right now?
Well, you know, the best line, you can line shop around here, and the best line right now using SBR odds would be at BetOnline, sportsbetting.ag at plus 250. Pinnacle is down at plus 238, but you get plus 250 if you shop around.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you can't ask for much more than that. Plus 250 is right around where you need to be to take a stab on a dog like this. I just am not stepping in front of Jon Jones. Yeah. The only person I've ever stepped in front of Jon Jones for was Daniel Cormier. Sure. He's proven to be the two division champion. I think he's the kind of guy that you can back. Gus has floundered and fallen short in big Showtime situations. You want to talk about setting up a trilogy fight? Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier have had beef again on Twitter, and they're both talking about fighting each other one more time before DC retires. I think that Jon Jones needs to win this fight to guarantee he can move to heavyweight for a title shot, or DC comes back down to light heavyweight and tries to unify the belt down there because they're going to strip him once this fight starts. I think that's the much bigger trilogy, and that's the much bigger payday. John's got to win. Yeah. What if Gus was plus 600? How about that? Would you take that one, Animarak? Well, you kind of have to at that point. You have to, huh? But if that was actually the line, I know mathematically, if assuming that the current the market is giving you a relatively close to fair odds right now, I know that mathematically you would. I don't know if I'd have the balls to actually pull the trigger on betting that Jones loses this one. Yeah, and that's where I feel the same way. If it was plus 600, that line would be brutally off, and I think I would have to take it just on a sheer line play. Mm-hmm. But I still would think that Jon Jones wins the fight. Right. All right. So my leans right now would be to the fight going the distance at plus 100. If you gave me a free play on the side, I'd probably throw it on Gus at about plus 250. And Gus by decision is plus 347. Interesting. Look at that. The market is saying that there's almost no chance of Gustafsson getting a finish here. Gustafsson inside the distance is plus 700. At getting a decision is just plus 350. Yeah, I mean, the only time we've ever seen Jon Jones is in trouble was when he was fighting Vitor Belfort, when he was hopped up on TRT. Yeah. When Vitor Belfort looked like he could KO a cow, he got him in an arm bar, snapped Jon Jones's arm, and he still didn't tap, got out of it, and then ended up finishing Vitor. So, I mean, the guy just doesn't lose inside the distance. All right. Well, I guess we've talked enough about this fight. I guess it does seem to have Jon Jones by decision written all over it. Those lines right now, Jones by 5-round decision, plus 225. Jones inside the distance is just plus 116. So the market clearly saying that a finish by Jones is more likely than a decision. Do you agree with that? I do. Jon has made it very, very clear that he is pissed off and he wants to put a stamp on this fight. He doesn't want Gus to be his rival. He doesn't want Gus to be that guy that people think might have gotten away with that victory. He wants to come out and finish him to put all of the haters to rest. And it wouldn't surprise me if he did. But on the flip side of that, like I said, Gus is just so hard to actually put away. I wouldn't be surprised if it went to a decision. All right. Interesting. Animarak. Cliff, a.k.a. Animarak, you're going to pass on this one. I'm going to pass as well. Last UFC event that we covered, it was the same deal. We had a lot of great calls on the main card, except for the main event, which we both passed on. Now let's move on to the Cris Cyborg fight, right? A similar situation here and a similar line. We have Cyborg around minus 250, Amanda Nunes around plus 200, plus 220, and kind of a similar situation here. A favorite who just feels so uncomfortable to make any kind of bet on her losing, but a clearly game and quality underdog. And I actually think that maybe Nunes has a better chance here of getting an upset than Gustafsson does. And I'm thinking that I'm also, it's scheduled for 5 rounds, but the over is 2.5 at minus 165. I'm thinking that Cyborg might get challenged a little bit here. I'm leaning Nunes at plus 200 and leaning over 2.5 minus 165. Clint, what do you think? I love the over 2.5 here. Cyborg has shown later in her career that she really enjoys playing with her food. She likes to go out there and make these girls work for a little bit before she picks her spot and TKOs them. In this kind of a case, she's fighting Nunes, who's got some nice knockout power herself and is in contention for the greatest women's fighter of all time. Basically, the winner of this fight is going to get that crown. I think they respect each other. I think they both come in here and kind of get to know each other a little bit. And when they start throwing and getting clipped, they'll slow down, they'll back up. I think it's going to be a very high level fight, and I really think that plays to the over.
Yeah, and what's your take on Nunes moving up? Right, she is taking a step up in weight class, moving up from 135 pounds. How do you think that affects her here?
You know, I'm not sure it does. Honestly, Cyborg is just such a big woman. She's always got trouble coming down to make the weight for this fight. And Nunes is actually really, really slim. If you saw her in her last fight, she looked like she had leaned out quite a bit. And I don't think there's enough time for her to really pack on muscle or anything like this, like that for this fight. It might definitely help her cardio, which is one more thing that helps us on that over 2.5.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of a threat she poses. I actually want to take a look at Cyborg finishing this fight in round 4 for one of those toss it up and take a long shot type of calls.
No, I hear you. You know, I think I'm going to make the over 2.5 at -150 an official play. This one could lose. Obviously, Cyborg could easily catch Nunes at any point in round 1, in round 2, and Nunes has great power as well. Would not at all be a shock if Nunes catches Cyborg at any time during the fight, including rounds 1 and 2. But all things considered, I agree with you that I think they're going to respect each other here. Of course, Cyborg's last fight, Cyborg's fight against Holly Holm, a fighter that she had to respect. That one went 5 rounds. You know what I mean? Cyborg got a nice solid win in that one, but it did go the distance. I'm going to take the over 2.5 -150 current line at Bookmaker and Just Bet as an official play. You want to make an official play here, Clint?
Yeah, that's going to go ahead and be my official play, and I'm not going to make it official, but everyone take a look at that. Cyborg wins in round 4. That's going to be a personal play that I make, and it might be a Genius Award call.
Let's see what those odds would be. Cyborg wins in round 4. Wow, 9-1, plus 875.
I think that Amanda Nunes, she reminds me a lot of Conor McGregor. Once she gasses out, she's just not the same fighter. Right. I think she's going to have better cardio. I think, like I said, these guys are going to respect each other. These girls, pardon me. And when it gets to round 3 or round 4, that's when it's going to get hairy. And I do see Cyborg putting a stamp on it at that point.
And let me just ask you one other question. You know, I look at the competition that they've fought. You know, I think that Nunes has clearly fought competition that's a clear step above what Cris Cyborg has fought. Nunes has clearly fought the elite, absolute elite at 135. Some huge names that she has fought and beaten. Cyborg not quite fought that caliber of fighter. Do you think that that's a factor that some people might maybe not considering as much as they should?
You know, I don't think it factors in as much in this case because Cyborg basically had that division created around her because she is so big and so powerful. She's got a very, very short loss list, and she's competed in both MMA and in Muay Thai and in boxing, kickboxing, everything. She barely ever loses. She is extremely talented, and they just can't find girls to fight her. I think if we had top-tier competition in a division for her, she would have fought them and she would have beat them.
Okay, so animarak and I are both going to take the over 2.5 rounds at -150. And the best odds right now for Nunes, I'm going to ask you the same question. I love asking you the tough questions. That's why I'm so good at my job, animarak. The reason you're so good at your job is because you know, you answer these questions and you field them and you take them. At what point would you take a flyer on Nunes? Plus 400 maybe?
I would say plus 350, plus 400. That'd be right around the range I would need to take a flyer.
All right, Clint, now let's move on to the next fight. A very, very interesting fight from a handicapping perspective here, right? Michael Chiesa against Carlos Condit. Both these guys are on losing streaks, right? Carlos Condit, of course, has lost a bunch of fights in a row. Chiesa himself is a guy who's on a losing streak. So both of these guys desperately need a win here. Condit is the underdog. And I'm not saying that I think Condit should necessarily be the favorite here, but anywhere around plus 150, you know, I think that Michael Chiesa was a top 10 contender before his last loss. But now, you know, he's moving to the welterweight division, and I'm thinking Condit might be a live dog here, plus 150 or so. What do you think?
I'm right there with you, Pete. I absolutely love Carlos Condit in this spot. Michael Chiesa, He is not the guy that we thought that he was. Everyone thought he was going to be a top 10 guy, maybe even fight for a challenge for a title shot. But you know what? He just hasn't quite gotten there. He's fallen short every single time he's taken a step up in competition. His big head-to-head with Kevin Lee was really, really telling that he was just not on Kevin Lee's level. And Kevin Lee himself has come up short. He just got beaten up for a full 5 rounds against Al Iaquinta, really removing him from the title picture as well. Now Chiesa is going to move up a weight class, and usually I like to bet on fighters who move up a weight class. I feel like it's their more natural weight. When they get up there, they have some success. But Carlos Condit is a natural 170 pounder. He's been fighting there his whole career. He's taken on guys up there, monsters like Tyrone Woodley and Robbie Lawler. And a lot of his losses that he's had have been real close, razor-thin decisions, or they've had little asterisks next to them where there are some questions as to should he really have lost that fight. Losing to Tyrone Woodley, for example, something happened to his leg during a takedown. Tyrone didn't even hit him. It was a takedown, something popped, Condit screamed, and the fight was over. Yeah. So I think Condit's a very live dog in this fight, and plus 150 is a great price.
Yeah, and also I didn't like the way Chiesa looked against Pettis, and Condit reminds me a little bit of Pettis in terms of his style and his strengths and weaknesses. The only question here is just how much fire does Condit actually have? You know, if he gets put on his back, is he going to have the fire to fight back? You know, his losses, some of them were forgivable, some of them a little bit less so. I don't know if, you know, getting guillotined by Oliveira has me a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna make Condit an official play here, and if it loses, that's totally fine. I'll just lose 1 unit. I'm going to take him as an official play at plus 143. I'm just airing out my concerns here about Condit. Do you think Condit has it in him has the fire still left in him to come back and get a win here?
Absolutely, I do. I think he's hungry. I think he knows the kind of skid that he's been on, and I think he knows how close he's been in a couple of these fights. You got to look at a guy like Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Mm-hmm. He's an explosive fighter. He's a kill or be killed fighter, and he dove on that guillotine to take it. Chiesa's not that kind of guy. He is a grinder. He's going to try and put Condit on his back. If the submission presents itself, then he'll try to sink it in. He's a little more slow and methodical, and I think that's exactly the kind of guy that Condit can defend against and get back to his feet. And just like you said, Anthony Pettis beat him up and basically TKO'd him and then wrapped up a submission after he was hurt. Anthony Pettis fought as low as 145 pounds. Now you're going up to 170 against a guy that's just as good, if not better, of a striker than Anthony Pettis, with the amount of power difference between 145 and 170. Yeah, I like Condit here.
Yeah, and it looked like to me that Chiesa got fatigued in the fight against Pettis, even though it was only the second round. Maybe the same kind of thing is going to happen here. I might take Condit just to win at plus 150 and double up. Condit inside the distance at plus 270. What do you think is more likely, a finish or a decision by Condit?
You know what? I like the idea of doubling up on this fight myself, but I don't think that I would play him inside the distance because I really don't see Condit submitting Chiesa. Nope. He's not that kind of a fighter. He doesn't have a submission win, I want to say, for 10 years. Something like that. Even though he's good on the ground, he just wants to beat guys into the mat. I would take him by KO and get that extra value if you're going to take that kind of a play, and I like it too.
Okay, I'm not going to get too cute or greedy. I'm just going to take Condit on the money line just to win at plus 150. That's the current line at Pinnacle, and you want to make that one an official pick as well?
Let's make that official. Absolutely. And one more thing to just give people to chew on here, Pete. If you recall, the whole controversy with the main event has this fight being moved from Las Vegas to California. And even though Chiesa is moving up a weight class and getting some extra weight, he's having to shift states here in the middle of a very difficult weight cut for him. So you'd think 170 would fix those gas tank issues, but this time it might not.
No, I don't think so. I think he has some serious cardio issues that we saw in his fight against Pettis. All right, Animarak and I are on two of the same plays, both the same plays so far. Now let's talk about Corey Anderson against Ilir Latifi. This is an interesting one. It just feels like it's either going to be, you know, Latifi inside the distance, or if Anderson can weather an early storm from Latifi, maybe Anderson by decision. I don't usually like to hedge out props. But this one seems like it has either Latifi inside the distance or Anderson by decision written all over it. What's your take on this fight?
You know, I don't like agreeing with you this much, Pete, but we're on the same page once again.
Yeah.
Right. And now, you know what, though? You've absolutely nailed it, though, because Anderson is either going to keep his distance and try and grind this fight out, or Latifi's going to catch him. And honestly, Latifi inside the distance is a play that I want to go official on. Corey Anderson does not have a chin. And you got to remember that if Corey Anderson is going to win this thing by decision, it's going to be leaning on his wrestling. Yeah. When two guys get in there to wrestle, the shorter guy has the advantage because it's harder to take them down. You can't get your hips. You can't get low enough. You can't get underneath them when they're shorter. And Latifi's a short, stocky, powerful kind of fighter. The only guy that could out wrestle him was Ryan Bader, and he's the champ over in Bellator now, and he was a top 5 205er. I don't think Corey Anderson is that good, and I think that chin issue is going to be a problem.
Yeah, and Anderson does push a high pace, and that probably will make him vulnerable against Latifi. If you had to make a play, I understand that you want Latifi definitely inside the distance, but if you had to take Anderson or Latifi just on the money line at about plus 130 for Anderson, minus 150 for Latifi, which would you take?
I would go with Latifi once again, just because I'm convinced he's going to win this fight. I don't see Corey winning it. I think he should be a bigger favorite than he is.
All right, so Latifi inside the distance is plus 120. You want that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's going to be an official play for you. I definitely agree with that. For now, I'm going to hold off. I'm just, just a little bit concerned that that Anderson's cardio is a nice positive for him here. We'll see, but I definitely agree with you that it's probably Latifi, probably inside the distance, plus 120. And now let's talk about another interesting fight. The last one we're going to talk about, Volkanovski against Chad Mendes, and this is kind of the opposite of the Condit fight. Two guys that the Condit fight is two guys that I'm kind of thinking about betting against. This one, two guys that I don't want to bet against. Volkanovski, a little bit of a tricky guy because he's obviously great. I like his character. I love his skill set. It's just a little bit hard to figure out quite where his ceiling is. Is he a 6 to 10, bottom half of the top 10 range contender, or is he even better than that? I could easily see him being even better than that. If he gets a win here over Chad Mendes, which is entirely possible, then I think he will have demonstrated and proven that he is, and that his ceiling, is as a top contender. I could easily see, I don't want to bet on Mendes getting a loss. I mean, he looked great after the long layoff, coming back. He's obviously well rested and probably going to be in a good frame of mind here. But I'm thinking that Volkanovski as a dog has some value. What do you think?
You know what? What a fight. This one's going to be awesome. If it's possible with the main and the co-main event for this card, I can't say this is the fight to watch because those are both going to be awesome, but it's close because everything you said is just so accurate. Chad Mendes looks so good coming off the long layoff, and I actually faded him. I took Miles Fury jury with him coming back just because I didn't think he would look so hot coming off of a USADA suspension. But boy, did he silence the doubters and really showed us he hasn't missed a beat. If there was ever a fight on this card that was a couch, sit back, watch, let yourself rest, don't worry about the money, it's going to be this card or this fight. I don't want to put my money on either of these guys against either of these guys because you're right. You can't step in front of either of these hype trains, and I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, you don't think? I mean, it's obviously a step up in class for Volkanovski, but I think he can handle it. And I'm thinking that they're kind of similar fighters. Their stances and their skills are kind of similar. A lot of times we see those kinds of fights going the distance. You think there's a real possibility of a finish here? Or do you think that the fight going the distance, just 3 rounds, might have a little bit of value?
I do think this fight can go to decision. I think it's another fight where they kind of respect one another.
Yeah.
They're both very, wrestling capable. And I do see that playing into this fight. However, sometimes when you get two guys that can both grapple really well, it turns into a striking match. And Volkanovski's got a ton of first-round finishes. Chad Money Mendes has a massive right hand and has no problem TKOing people. Either one of these guys could get clipped if it gets hairy because they refuse to wrestle with one another. I mean, if you forced me to take a pick, if I had to absolutely make a pick on this fight, I guess I would go Chad Mendes by decision just to get that little extra tidbit of value. He is the veteran fighter, and as much as Volkanovski is exciting, he just hasn't proven that he's top tier just yet.
Mendes,
I don't want to go official.
Go ahead.
I don't want to go official. That's not an official pick, but if I had to make a play, that would be the way I'd lean for this fight.
Mendes by decision is plus 203. The fight going the distance is minus 130. Volkanovski by decision is plus 295. Volkanovski inside the distance is plus 425. I don't know. I'm so tempted to take a shot with Volkanovski. The best line right now would be plus 140 at Heritage. Pinnacle is down to plus 130. You're not convinced. You just haven't seen it from Volkanovski. Because I think, I guess my other question for you is, do you think there's maybe a recency bias or reading too much into how Mendes looked against Miles Jury, or do you think we can look at that fight and say this guy's definitely back and in top form?
I mean, I feel like we have to say he's back and in top form, because before the layoff, he was going toe-to-toe with guys like Jose Aldo when he was in his prime. He showed us that he is that caliber of a fighter, and he didn't miss a beat. He did exactly what an elite fighter would do to a guy like Miles Fury Jury when he came back. If he had struggled and eked out a decision or something like that, we could talk about the fact that maybe he had faded a little bit or something like that, but he didn't. He finished him. He made him look like he didn't belong in the cage with him.
Yeah. Mendes has only lost to elite competition, and I guess this is it. This is the test for Volkanovski. If he beats Mendes here, then I think he's definitely made a strong case for him being elite competition. I guess you're right. I guess there's no reason to force it. The other two plays that I have going on this card so far, I'm liking. No reason to force anything, although I'm very tempted to give Volkanovski here at plus 140. All right, so once again, Animarak and I are both on Nunes Cyborg, over 2.5 rounds, minus 150, and Condit to win any which way at plus 150. Those are the only plays I've got, and Animarak is also adding on Latifi inside the distance, plus 120, which I'm not going to add on, but I definitely agree with. Clint, a.k.a. Animarak from the Loshak in the Bag Show. Thanks so much. Talk to you again very soon.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.